August 5th, 2024, inside this federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., a judge reviewed a decade of secret deals and issued a ruling that shook Silicon Valley to its core. Google is a monopolist. The court exposed a massive mechanism of control. Google has been paying Apple $20 billion every year to guarantee their search engine remains the default on every iPhone. On the surface, the empire looks untouchable. Google processes 5 billion searches every single day and generated $400 billion in revenue in 2025. Yet beneath that volume, the foundation is fracturing. This collapse is being driven by a self-inflicted wound. Hidden beneath the headlines are secrets, cover-ups, and a series of internal decisions that Google's own employees have described as a betrayal. To understand why the most powerful company in the history of the internet is breaking down from the inside, we have to look past the courtroom drama and investigate the brutal math of their original business model. Google operates server farms the size of cities and owns undersea cables crossing the Pacific, yet the product is free to use. That is because you are not the customer. In this model, the user's attention is the product being sold to advertisers. This chart shows why Google's growth was historically unstoppable. When an automaker builds its 10 millionth car, the cost of steel and labor is nearly identical to the first. But when Google answers its 10 billionth search of the day, the servers and index are already built. The cost of that additional query is almost zero. This gap represents a 40% operating margin. While retail and auto companies fight for single-digit profits, Google's digital infrastructure allowed them to turn nearly every additional search into pure revenue. They protected this margin by buying every door into the room. Google used its massive cash reserves to purchase the default search position on Safari, Firefox, and wireless carriers worldwide. These exclusionary contracts meant that competitors like Microsoft's Bing were locked out of the race before a user ever typed a search query. Google built a mathematically flawless profit machine. However, that machine was so successful that any new innovation now threatens the very bottom line the company was designed to protect. In 2017, Google researchers published the foundational paper that introduced the transformer architecture, the technology behind every modern AI. Despite writing the blueprint, Google failed to launch the product. When OpenAI's ChatGPT reached 100 million users in just 60 days, Google's leadership declared a code red. It was an emergency meeting triggered by the realization that they had been beaten to market with their own invention. Leadership was paralyzed by this math. An AI response costs roughly 10 times more in computing power than a traditional search. And because it synthesizes a direct answer, there is no space for the advertiser links that generate Google's $300 billion revenue stream. The rush to catch up led to disaster. During the launch of Bard, the AI provided a factually incorrect answer about the James Webb Space Telescope. That single hallucination erased $100 billion in market value in a single trading day. The errors continued with the rollout of AI overviews, which instructed users to put glue on pizza and suggested that no doctors had ever died by suicide. Sundar Pichai admitted these hallucinations are inherent features of the technology that remain unsolved. For 25 years, Google's brand was built on the absolute certainty that their results were correct. In a panicked attempt to protect their ad revenue, they broke that promise. This loss of trust followed years of internal policy shifts. In 2018, Google quietly removed the "Don't be evil" motto from its corporate code of conduct, signaling an end to the idealism that defined the company's founding era. That same year, reports emerged that Google had protected executives accused of sexual misconduct. This included Android creator Andy Rubin, who was given a $90 million exit package after an internal investigation found claims against him credible. The revelation of the payout triggered the largest employee protest in tech history. Thousands of workers walked off the job in cities worldwide, citing a culture that prioritized protecting high-level executives over employee safety. The pattern of secrecy extended to Google's products. Leadership spent years hiding Project Dragonfly, a censored search engine for China, and recently paid nearly $400 million to settle claims that they tracked user locations even after the feature was turned off. These incidents track a consistent corporate priority, choosing short-term profit and protection over the long-term credibility of the platform. This strategy is now destroying the ecosystem that Google depends on. For 2 decades, Google sent traffic to publishers, who in turn created the high-quality content that made Google's search index useful. AI overviews have siphoned that value away. By summarizing articles directly on the search page, Google ensures users never click through to the original source, cutting off the revenue that independent news and research sites need to survive. This creates a cascading failure. As publishers lose 30 to 50% of their traffic, they produce less content. This degrades the quality of the search index, leading to a worse experience for users and eventually lower value for advertisers. Google is consuming the very data it needs to survive. By scraping and summarizing the web without compensation, they are destroying the creators required to train their future AI models. The financial cost of this eroded trust is becoming clear. Despite inventing the technology, Google holds only 4.5% of the enterprise AI subscription market, falling far behind startups like Anthropic. Companies are hesitant to build their workflows on Google's infrastructure. They are looking at a history of over 300 killed products and data cover-ups, and deciding the risk of sudden abandonment is too high. At the same time, the core search business is facing a demographic shift. Internal research shows nearly 40% of young people now use TikTok or Instagram as their primary search engine, favoring human-led video over Google's text links. The generation turning 18 today is forming search habits on platforms other than Google, beginning a slow, permanent withdrawal from the god of the internet. Google still holds significant assets. YouTube has become the #1 streaming service in America by watch time, and Waymo's autonomous vehicles are now completing 500,000 weekly rides in major cities. Within DeepMind, researchers like Demis Hassabis are using AI to map the protein universe. These scientific breakthroughs have the potential to compress drug discovery timelines from 12 years to 2, creating value in industries far larger than search. Google possessed the talent, the massive data, and the capital to own the future of AI. Their current struggle stems from a decade spent burning the credibility that made those advantages effective. Next week, we move from a company governed by market forces to one controlled by a single founder with 10 times the voting power of his investors. We go inside Meta to see how Mark Zuckerberg is leveraging absolute authority to force a pivot his competitors are only now beginning to fear.